Okay, we're gonna go live.
Can you go live? I mean,
Can we go
I
live?
guess you can, but you don't have a quorum right now.
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm waiting a few minutes.
So we can go live and just let everybody know that we need to maybe wait for 5 minutes or so. And,
Okay.
okay. I'm sure we'll, oh, look at that. Oh,
He's not commissioner.
never mind.
But it still serves as the public hearing, right? Whether or not we have a quorum, we just can't vote on anything because we're not voting on it anyway.
I think that's a correct statement.
Yeah.
Nice. I can
Yeah,
look
because
at
it's
that.
public forum, it's
Primary
primary
focus
focus.
more people, more time. But yes, but it does put a smile on everything else. Do you talk to any commissioners?
We're not voting on anything. It's just the public forum. We already provided all of the input Monday.
Okay.
So
you don't,
primarily it's a public forum component piece requirement that would be.
so there was no action today?
No.
The formatting on this is very nice.
Interesting. And forgive me, like when I was. Well, unless they defer.
Better, but I can't argue with the
So
weather.
we've already consensus recommended to move this up to council.
That is my understanding. So,
And that's maybe in the original process.
How is this center in the
That's what I was
universe?
seeing.
Cold?
That's what I would expect to see.
Did it get down to what?
Oh, there's nothing.
One.
Yeah.
One, and it warmed up to 21 when I left. Last Saturday.
Make sure it's action afterwards.
But is it
I
dry?
think what you're saying, what you're laying down.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just giving you all that.
It was very dry. It was very powdery,
I
like salt
totally
shaker.
get it.
Now, would your arrival in town, maybe the Bernstein Herald, would you have?
Not anymore. That would, in the old days, the Gentura News and the Druzy News, your name would be in there, but not now.
Okay.
No, but they still have a Burns Times Herald, so.
Yeah. I stop, when I go through voicing, I always stop.
I get it in the mail just so I can,
Oh,
well, because we got property there, so I like to know what's going on. They're doing quite a bit of renovation on it downtown.
I've been a little out of the loop on this one.
Yeah, a lady whose family's been there. She's the daughter of one of the glare-ups. She's the optometrist, and her husband and family have done a lot with SHPO funds and community development block grants, and redid the Central Hotel, the old Masonic building. Just about everything on Main Street is being redone, so that's really nice. Hopefully some jobs will come out of it for
we'll
people.
see. That's,
Well, wonderful, so we don't have to worry.
that's always been their problem.
You can make a
They've been
motion.
a two-horse town. Or it's just a town.
Well, they do have fiber, so unlike a lot of areas there, the state archive is in Burns. So all that fiber's been there a long time, so that, a lot of people have small businesses, you just don't know about them.
Had a lot to do with Kitsap Burns.
Oh, good. Would you mind making the meeting?
Yeah, fiber's been there since the 90s. I mean, it was there a long time. They backed up, because in the Pacific Rim, that's the only place that has the least likely to be catastrophic
Thank you, and we think better,
issues.
You-
We're very near
Yes,
everywhere
I
else, so they have a lot of blank fiber that people have
Just been
wanted,
modified
but
to get that done.
nobody wants to do the RFPs to get in there.
Hey, Ariane, I'm gonna go ahead and start recording.
Is it recording?
We are recording.
Okay. I am going to call to order the City of Coos Bay Parks Commission meeting for November 17th, 2022 at 4 p.m. We will do roll call. Who do I have online? We'll start with Bev.
Hello, everyone. Bev Myers.
Hello, this is Commissioner Carmen Matthews.
And Carolyn, if you'll roll call.
Yes, I'm here. This is Carolyn Johnson, your consulting assistant.
Coco.
Coco Sutton, Park Commissioner.
Ariane Lyons, Parks Commission.
Jennifer Wersing, City Engineer, Deputy Director.
Greg Hamblett, Operations Administrator.
Thank you. Our First order of business here is actually to modify slightly the agenda. This has been advertised also as the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Facilities Plan public hearing, so we would like to take note of that and also add it would be an item that we will discuss as a commission voting to move on up the procedural ranks to council. Moving on down the agenda, approval of meeting minutes. We will skip this item. The meeting minutes, while posted online, were not sent out with the agenda to the commissioners for vote, so we will move this item on to the December meeting. Item number 3, citizen input, public comment. Trudy, I see you're online. Do you have public comment? We are moving on from public comment. Our next item would be the, Carolyn, if you would please take over. It's the Parks and Recreation and Cultural Facilities Plan public hearing and draft review.
Thank you, Chair Lyons, members of the commission, hello. You are looking at the draft public hearing document that is going to be going on to council next week as part of their work session. But the focus today is for you to have an official public hearing on this draft. You've met 2 or 3 times. You had a subcommittee meet very early on, and you had 2 work session meetings to go over the draft and identify things that you'd like to see included. The purpose of the meeting today is for the public to officially have a chance to comment in a public format. They have been given the opportunity through surveys that happened all last summer on things that were of interest to them related to the parks, and also some surveys that Commissioner Sutton presented at a number of locations. We've also noticed this in the newspaper as a public hearing, and it's also been in the Friday update. It was in the Friday update last week. So with that, I'd like to go right into it if I could, starting with slide number 2, chapter 1. I'm going to skip over some of the early pages like the cover page and things like that. The plan is organized fairly simply. It's got a section on public participation and how the plan is organized. It has a chapter on what the context of the plan is, the demographics, our location, what are our facilities and our needs. And then this is the chapter that really dives into all the different parks and facilities. The 3rd chapter is the framework, we're calling it the framework for the future. It talks about the community vision with council leadership and identifies 4 key goals. Each of those goals has objectives that go with them, and I can get into that a little bit later. Going on to slide number 3. Again, this section talks about where the city is located, what our demographics are. There's a reference in the demographics section to an appendices that has some information from the decennial census. We were in a pandemic, so we had a little bit of a challenge with getting some of those. Chapter 2, point 3 on slide 4. We go through the key plan elements. And these are the things that really drive a lot of what you see in many of the parks, the types of facilities that there are. At your last work session, you asked about some discussion about the sawmill and tribal trail. That has been added since last time. I'd like to thank Mr. Behrens, member of your audience there, for getting me some information on that. That was very helpful. And the PowerPoint identifies the pages where you can see each of these sections. The next section on slide number 5 talks about the plan context. Each facility was identified in order based on what we were seeing in the community surveys. Now, this may change. That's up to council. They may want to prioritize those differently for the purposes of the plan. They may want to go to an ABC format, kind of like what you did on some of your other pieces when you got further into each one of the parks. The first park that we saw much comment on in surveys was Mingus Park and the pool. It describes the size, each of these describe the size of the park, their location, and then what is offered in each. This one goes into 2 slides. Slide number 7 goes into the recommended improvements, for that park. At your last meeting, I believe you added skate park upgrades, so that is a little bit new from what you saw last time. The second park identified was Empire Lakes, also known as John Toppit's Park. That's on page 14 of the plan. And it, again, gives a fairly simple description of where it's located and how big it is and what's in the park. Going to slide 9, you can see the improvements that the commission is recommending. You added maintenance of the park levees at your last meeting. Moving on to the boardwalk on slides 10 and 11. This identifies a descriptor of the boardwalk, and it goes through improvements on the next page. Slide 11, A through J. Moving on to slide 12 is the Empire boat ramp. That's on page 16 of the plan, and it provides a description of the location and what is at the boat ramp. The next slide, 13, identifies recommended improvements at that location. The next one is the East Side Boat Ramp on page 17 of the plan. And it recommends, there's improvements recommended there as well. East Side Park would be the next one on page 17 of the plan. Both of those are on page 17. And this identifies recommended improvements as well. Moving on to slide number 16 is the South 10th Street Pirate Park. And we received some very interesting and helpful information from an individual, from someone in the public, that the Parks Commission, you looked at this on slide number 17, some of the additional improvements that need to happen at that park. So these are all laid out here based on your last discussion at your last workshop. Jumping down to slide 18, the Marshfield Pioneer Cemetery. I'd like to thank the ladies that were so kind to provide more information on this. We tidied it up in the document itself on page 19. It's a little shorter and not quite so long as what you see in this slide, but it's a good descriptor. On slide number 19, we identify improvements that are recommended at this location. Slide 20 is the Ed Lund Park on page 19 of the plan. And it talks about what the park area is used for, what's in the building, and its use as a community play area and possible improvements at that location. The Scout Cabin is identified on page 20. This is slide 21 with a good descriptor and improvements that have been recommended. Slide 22 is a descriptor of the Taylor Wasson Park, its location and recommended improvements. Slide 23 goes through the Windy Hill Park and the what's at that location and some improvements that could be made as well. Next is the pedway. A pretty good descriptor here, identifying location and what you can find at that park. And the last one in chapter 2 is related to the firefighters memorial. It's kind of in its own category. And it really goes into how it was designed and why it's there, and talks about its memorial significance to the community. I would like to add that in the plan, all these pages that we've just gone through, one of the things that you had asked for is that each park there'd be an addition of maybe a chart or even a couple of bullet points identifying the types of grants that might be available for these different park uses. And that's not in here yet, but that will be added when I finish up the grant work piece of this. Were there any questions on this part of chapter 2?
Speaking Beverly Myers, of East Side Boat Ramp, I just noticed there is already, I don't know if this is past or to the future, but there is already a fish cleaning station there, but there is not a boat wash, whatever they do for motors and the boat. So I don't know how, if I'd have to go back to the writing, but there is already a boat fish cleaning, no, excuse me. There is a fish cleaning station. But not a boat wash. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. That makes sense to mirror the boat ramp information above.
I'm not able to hear any of this. If someone could take a note and just do a mark out copy and send it to me, I will fix this. I didn't hear any of it with the squeakiness. I'm sorry.
This is Commissioner Sutton. I believe what we heard was on East Side Boat Ramp, there
Yes.
already is a fish cleaning station, and we wanted to add a boat wash for the motors for the invasive species issue.
At the East Side Boat Ramp,
Yes, that's correct. And Empire Boat Ramp, I believe, already has the washing station. Is that correct?
I don't think that it does, no.
It doesn't?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it was, I believe it was removed due to deterioration and was awaiting a grant for reinstallation, if
Okay,
I remember
'cause-
correctly.
'Cause
well,
both-
the Empire Boat Ramp says this, and I'm looking on page 16, this heavily used 2.8 acre area boat ramp facility is comprised of 8 float docks accessed by residents and visitors from across the state. Improvements for future consideration include restroom upgrade, garbage enclosure, asphalt overlay, and information kiosk. Now that's on the Empire.
Okay,
Ramp.
the Empire Boat Ramp does not have an engine flush, and East Side does not have an engine flush either. The Empire Boat Ramp has a fish cleaning station. They are working on rebuilding it. It is a little small, but it's doable.
Okay, right now, the Empire Boat Ramp language in the draft plan doesn't mention the fish cleaning station at all. Is the commission wanting to go ahead and add that in, that there is a fish cleaning station under construction?
Under item 4, I think commission would like to recommend, and correct me if I'm wrong, item E, continue updates of fish cleaning station and install engine flush, is that the
Boat
correct term?
engine flush.
Boat washing station.
Yeah.
Okay, let me add that. Cleaning station and installation of a boat washing station. So those would be 2 things, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then maybe we could go to East Side Boat Ramp. Right now it says needed improvements include an updated landscape plan, um, a 7-acre, now this is kind of messed up. It should say it's a 7-acre ramp area, and you'd like to see an installation of a fish cleaning station. So that 7-acre ramp area should be up in the descriptor.
Correct.
My apologies. So installation of a fish cleaning station and installation of a boat washing station, signs, and a restroom update.
So Carolyn, this is Greg Hamlet. There is
Uh-huh.
a fish cleaning station at East Side.
Okay, so that whole thing can go away.
Is it rough or is it usable? I can't remember.
Maintenance.
It is usable,
Okay.
yes. And actually, it's pretty nice.
Okay.
But
Okay.
there is not a boat wash at either facility.
Okay.
We need those.
Okay, so this would be changed then to say you would update the landscape plan, this is east side, install a boat washing station, addition of signs, and a restroom update. Does that sound right?
Yes,
Okay, great, got it.
I believe so. And Bev?
East Side Boat Ramp does have a very usable restroom, male, female, mixed, whatever they call them nowadays. And the fish cleaning station is wonderful. Parking lot and landscaping is very under control. I don't know the rules for a motor wash. There is not one in East Side Boat Ramp. Financially, we don't want it upsetting so many people, but everything's under control, including a very easy landscape plan of just weed eating and mowing in East Side Boat Ramp area. But the boat motor wash is questionable. Thank you.
Does the commission want to talk about that? Whether or not you need an updated landscape plan? That's one of the recommendations.
This is Commissioner Sutton. I believe that we could put on these maintain. I don't know if that's something you want to put on there. The fish cleaning stations, I believe those end up getting beat up pretty bad on both of the Empire and East Side. I don't know, your grinders and a lot of those things sometimes need maintenance. And I don't know, are those pretty expensive? I don't know what kind you have here. I just know from past park experiences, sometimes those grinders get jammed up.
As far as the grinders go out at East Side, they're not operational at this point in time. And part of that is because the system itself, the downstream system itself, was not considered during the installation of these grinders. As far as the costs go, I haven't had the pleasure yet to look into how much those cost to replace.
Very expensive.
I wouldn't imagine they're very cheap, but they are still, I mean, there is a cost associated with them. What that is, I'm unsure of.
Well, if there's a fish station out there already, perhaps it could just be changed from installation of a fish cleaning station to ongoing maintenance of the station. That's,
Upgraded maintenance, I think, if the grinders aren't working, because usually if you have an older station, it's hard to find parts for those. Usually they're integrated. So we might want to put the words in for anything that has a fish cleaning station for upgrade and or maintain. Thank you.
okay. And then there was a notation that the restroom is in pretty good shape, but one of the recommendations was an update of the restroom at the East Side Boat Ramp. Did you want to talk about that?
I think we should leave that in there because if we're going to do an possible installation of a wash station, update to the fish cleaning, we might as well evaluate the restrooms while we're there.
Okay,
This is Commissioner Sutton. I believe on our last meeting, we indicated that most restrooms take a beating, so we wanted to, since this is a 10-year plan, put that verbiage in there, because anytime you get into the water or sewer systems, or if they're vault toilets, there's an expense on those, and we want to be mindful of that, because that seems to be one of the number one issues that's brought up with parks with surveys is having those types of facilities available. Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other comments through slide number
25.
25 regarding the firefighters memorial? We've gone through about half of them at this point. If not, I'll go on.
I can't, there was a hand up, but I can't see who
Oh, okay.
was the hand.
Who's got the hand up?
I don't have that
Bev?
on my screen.
Hang on, maybe I can see.
CS guest.
CS guest.
CS guest, do you have a comment on the east side boat ramp?
Is there anything in the chat? CS guest
There's four.
has left the conversation.
I think the other comment that Bev made was about the updated landscape plan on the east side boat ramp. It is maintenance, ease of maintenance right now. What we could possibly do is have some creative wording there that includes continued landscape plan. I know there was a discussion of additional trees at some point.
So it appears that CS guest has a comment for the scout cabin.
Okay, we'll finish up with the east side boat ramp, and then we'll discuss go back to the scout cabin. Bev, do you want to make an additional comment to the update landscape plan on east side boat ramp?
I think you're doing fine. I just think that the easiest thing right now over here with all this areas and areas to mow and weed eat, east side has those big rocks, so you can't just blast through with a riding mower. So there's a lot of weed eating to do. And I think they're doing fine, what they can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. And so that's something for us to keep in mind when we look at doing these additions here, is to make sure that the maintenance is easier, so that perhaps it could be done all with a riding lawnmower or something like to that effect. But I think we're satisfied with east side boat ramp, and we will touch back to,
On the scout camp, scout cabin is slide number 21. It's on page 20.
In regards to CS comment in the chat, they have indicated that the scout cabin is on the National Register of Historic Places. It appears that on, what slide was that, scout cabin?
and that was added to the description of the scout cabin.
It says National Register. I guess it could be added of historic places.
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in there. We'll just make sure it's a little tighter.
Thank you for that comment. We'll move on to Eastside Park.
Were there other comments on that?
There's
I
no
think I
online
had
comments.
gone through that. Were there new comments?
I don't see any other comments.
I don't see any additional comments. If you want to continue with the slides.
Okay. We are down to, let's see,
Slide 26.
slide 26. This section of the plan, pages 22 to 24, goes through the city-owned cultural facilities. The Coos Art Museum, the Egyptian Theater, the Sun Printing Museum, and the Coos Bay Library. So I didn't put together slides separate for each of those. Each of them are identified on those pages. And after the commission last talked, it appeared that there was satisfaction with, how those had been put together. they are in the draft plan. Did you want me to talk about each one of those individually, or would you like me to go on?
I think we will continue, or we have one comment from a guest.
Okay.
The Coos Bay Rail Museum is on city property and uses a city-owned building. And so that falls in the parameters of the art museum. So it's a city-owned piece of dirt. So it probably should be added to that list.
Thank you.
I didn't know that.
That was on our surveys. This is Commissioner Sutton. That was on our surveys. I'm not sure. I thought it was in one of the previous plans.
What's that? What was the comment?
I didn't realize that the Coos Rail Museum the building was owned by the city. And if that is the case, Mr. Barron is correct. The council was pretty clear that if there was any cultural facilities in city-owned buildings, they were to be added. So I can put together something on that, and that would be the fifth cultural facility. And I think it has a very distinct name. It's called I can't remember, but I can go ahead and include a section on that.
Carol,
And Greg,
this
maybe
is-
I can touch base with you after this meeting to get a little more feedback on the city's ownership of that
Carolyn, this is
property.
Commissioner Sutton. We did have that on our visitor survey. There was a descriptor of it, and it was also on the other surveys that we did. So I think there was information previously on this in some of our other
Yeah,
missions.
Or just yell for it.
I think I had the impression that this was privately owned, and the direction we had from the council was to not include those. But if this is public, if the city owns the land, then we definitely need to, and we have some agreement with them, we definitely need to plug this in, so.
I talked to Roger about the rail museum and asked him specifically if it was city-owned land. He said yes. And there's a very small structure on there. It's probably not more than 1,200 square feet, and that structure belongs to the city also.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that, because I for some reason I thought they were doing a lease on that land and they were independent, but,
I asked Roger if the city owned it. That's as far as I got in that conversation. So.
Okay.
And then Marshfield Sun Printing Museum.
Yep.
The city, is that on? I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Was it on there?
yep, it's in here.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
number
thank
3.
you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's why we do these, because it's, you live here for a long time and then you're like, wait a minute. So, and then I appreciate that on the building, on the railway museum as well. Originally, I believe that was on skid steer so that they could move it. But I think it is now actually on a poured foundation, so.
Well, I will go ahead and add it in, and at the work session, if the council has different information, we can take it out, but I think it's definitely a worthy addition.
I agree.
The next piece of the plan,
There's a comment online. Greg, can you read that?
So a comment again from CS Guest was also list others that are on the National Register of Historic Places, such as the Egyptian Theater, is the comment.
can do.
Oh, CS, that's Crystal, is that you?
Thank you. Must be.
It's Cricket Souls.
Oh, Cricket,
Oh, okay.
all right.
Cricket.
Thank you. After this discussion of all these facilities, we go into our plan, goals, and objectives, starting on page 28. And let me pull up page 28 myself. I'm sorry, 25 to 28. Yeah. We had 4 goals, and as we talked last time, the goals are each supported by objectives to carry out the goal, to implement the goal. The first goal on slide number 29 is, there was a little cleanup that was needed on this that I'd like to point out. Enhance existing facilities for public enjoyment and safety with consideration to new facilities and when opportunity and financial capacity are available. I had left out the word "and." Someone had brought that up last time and I had missed it. So that would need to be included. Were there any comments on that goal you wanted to go over? Okay. The next on slide number 30 is the first objective for that goal. And rather than me reading through these, maybe as we go, the commission can just bring up whether or not you would like to discuss each one of these. And if not, we can move on. Or if there's members of the public that would like to talk about them, would that work?
Yes.
Yes, I think so. In the interest of time, I think that we'll move quickly through here unless there's comments.
Okay. This next,
Just
I'm
real
sorry.
quick,
Go ahead.
Carolyn, on slide 30 on your, maybe it's not pertinent to this, but you've got goal 2, objective 1, instead of goal 1, objective 1. I don't know. if
Yeah,
it's pertinent.
that was a PowerPoint problem.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just in the PowerPoint. Sorry about that.
No big deal.
There's only one PowerPoint king at City Hall, and that's not me. Roger does killer PowerPoints, but I did my best. The next goal was to, I'm sorry, let's go back to objective 1, and that's to be consistent with SCORP and land use law related to archaeological resources in collaboration with tribal partners. And that was something that you added last time, the reference to the collaboration with tribal partners. The next objective on slide number 31 talks about developing baseline information for facilities. This one I thought I'd like to go ahead and read this one because the commission was pretty clear when you first started this that you wanted this for every single park and facility. And this was to create and maintain individual site plans, floor plans for cities and floor plans for city structures, identifying location and amenity types and locations for all city parks, trails, and cultural facilities. The archaeological resources piece of this was added with the contribution of the Coquel tribal resource. That was very helpful. So instead of having this in every single park now, it's going to be an objective for everything, for all of the parks. Slide 32 talks about management plans and compliance with SCORP, very important for grant funding. Slide 33 talks about collaboration and how important that is. And I would like to just throw out a little notation here. Late last week, actually, I think it was Friday. Yeah, it was Friday. I heard from somebody who's writing a grant for the Millicoma Trail on behalf of the school district. And he shared the grant application with me, and we were able to get them a letter of support. So that's a really good example of how we can collaborate with other agencies for improvements to parks facilities, not just in our own city, but in and around the city as well, that maybe we don't own. Slide 34 is talking about using best practices. And this is a fairly standard objective for most park departments. Slide 35 talks about joining public facilities where you can, where it's feasible and appropriate. Sometimes there's ways to combine uses to the benefit of each use at a lower cost. So I thought that was important to add. Slide 36 talks about safety as a facility priority. And the commission had a pretty robust discussion about safety in the parks and safety in the park design that have been morphed into this language. Slide 37 is discussion of the maintenance, improvements, and enhancement of existing public art. You're not going into new public art at this juncture, but you wouldn't be precluded from doing that if you wanted to down the road. I think the enhanced part would get you through, kind of get you into that territory if you wanted to see new public art somewhere else in town, besides where it is now. Slide number 38 talks about sharing public infrastructure. Slide 39 talks about maintenance and service. There's a little grammatical snafu here in the first 3 lines that I'm going to clean up in the draft. So I think what's important is that we want to make sure our parks are maintained. On slide 40 is goal 2, and this talks about branding and directional signage to enhance visitor and resident connectivity with our parks and facilities. Slide 41 is the use of, it's the first objective, and that's to use city branding, and that word logo should not be in there. That should go away. I think that's on the slide still. So sorry about that. I'll make sure that it's not in the document on page 27. I'll check that. Slide number 42. Again, anything that refers to logo will go out. I guess I didn't get it in the PowerPoint from the last one, but I thought that I had cleaned it up. But I will double check that throughout the document and make sure that word logo is not there, because you guys were pretty clear on that at your last meeting.
In the draft that we have in front of us, it is
Yes.
removed.
It is. Okay, good. Okay, this is just a holdover from my last PowerPoint. And goal 3 is to pursue sustainable funding sources to seek out a wide variety of resources in this plan and anywhere else you can find it. Slides 44, and 45, and 46 each go into the types of grants that you might want to look for. And it does here mention the Egyptian Theater, the Art Museum, Marshfield Pioneer Museum, and Pioneer Cemetery, and the Marshfield Sun Printing Museum. But we'll augment and make sure that's all of these are noted as historic spots on the National Register throughout the document. I'll double check that. Slide 45 talks about partnering with others for funding. And you had added the Adopt a Park Trail groups and the Friends of organizations here. So these are the types of things that will be expanding in the appendix on the different types of grants. And then goal 4 was to build and enhance, that's on slide 46, relationships for park implementation. Goal 4, objective 1, talks about the potential partners. Slide 48 talks about working with others to promote events. And it lists quite a few of the other groups and types of events that we see in the city. And the third objective here talks about sharing information, making sure that we make sure people are aware on slide 49 of what's going on with our facilities. And slide 50 is the last objective for goal 4. We want to make sure we comply with natural resource management requirements. This also, our Cook Hill representative was very helpful in kind of framing this. So I think that's pretty important. And the last piece of this, chapter 3, goes into an overview of the funding types that we could be looking for down the road. And this will be expanded in Appendix C with a lot more detail. And I will also be going back to each individual park and cultural facility and giving examples of types of grants that we might look for down the road. So that's all I had. Were there questions on this last piece?
Carolyn, in Appendix C, is that where you're going to note each park item, or is that the grant opportunities going to be in the body of the master plan?
It's going to be in both. In Appendix C, I'm going to be listing, oh gosh, a lot of different grants that are out there right now. But after each one of the park facilities, I will be noting examples of grant types that could be explored for that particular park. And they'll just be examples. I don't want to go into a lot of detail because you can find that in Appendix C. But that way, if something catches your eye as you're reading it, you can know where to go to get more detail on that particular type of grant.
Do we have commissioner comments on the objectives and goals section? And Carolyn, when do you plan on having the appendices complete?
Well, the council's going to meet on Tuesday, and once they meet, I will have more time to finish that piece up with all those details. I didn't want to dive into it until they had looked at this first, this one last time before we go to their public hearing. So I'll have it ready for their public hearing in December. Did you want to see it? The detailed grants?
Yeah, I think in its, the commission in general would like to see the master plan in its entirety that is provided to council.
Okay, I can make sure you get a copy of that. So when it goes to council, it can go to you too. Did you want another meeting to go over it all again? Or did you want me to just make sure you received it when they got it? I want to make sure I'm understanding.
I think making sure that we all receive it, we can discuss it if there's any commentary at our standard parks meeting. We don't need to hold a special one, but there will not be anything that we'll need to vote on at that time. It'll just be for commentary.
Oh, okay. Okay. That sounds good. Their packet I'll make sure that they get it a week ahead of time, and I'll make sure you get it as well. You'll be having a meeting the Thursday before their Tuesday meeting. They're meeting on the 20th, so you will meet on, let's see, you'll be meeting on the 15th. So we can put it on that agenda so you can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do we have any additional commissioner comments for the master plan in general?
Chair Lyons, for that meeting on the 15th, did you want to continue this public hearing to that meeting date? So if there were comments from the public on the grants, the grant resources, you could take those public comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then you won't want to close the public hearing.
Does that
We'll be
mess with
good.
the schedule or?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because if there are comments, we can share those with the council at the meeting on the 20th.
That works well. I think at this time, I would like a consensus from the Parks Commissioners to move the draft Parks, Recreational, and Cultural Facilities Plan, including the updates that we discussed today and some clerical cleanup that Carolyn's working on, to move to council for their review.
This is Commissioner Sutton. Can we do that if we're continuing the public hearing piece? Or do we need to do that in our next meeting?
You may want to do that at your next meeting. If you're going to continue the public hearing, if something comes up that you'd like to add, you could always just modify your recommendation, but it's up to you, however you'd like to handle it.
I think at this time I would just ask for a consensus to move forward, and then we can do the final push possibly.
The
Okay.
moving forward is just at a work session, so yes, absolutely, especially if we're gonna meet on December 15th, then you can make your final decision or your recommendation to present the draft master plan to council at their regularly scheduled council meeting.
So we'll continue on with the schedule as we've moved forward, hearing no objection to doing so. I'm also looking for, and then any additional comments to the master plan or the process or moving forward to council.
This is Commissioner Sutton. I move that we move this forward to the next public hearing and get it ready for council, subject to any comments that come in from the public out in the next meeting.
Commissioner Lyons, we did get one more comment. This is Greg Hamlet with the City of Coos Bay from Cricket. FYI, Coos Art Museum is eligible but not listed on the National Historic Register. Still an important cultural institution. That was the comment.
Thank you, Cricket. So I have a motion from Coco that we continue on. We move this to the council work session and then continue the public hearing to our next Parks Master Plan. Can I get a second? It has to be either you, Bev, or Carmen, if you want.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I agree too. This is Bev. I can't find my unmute button.
You're unmuted now. We can see you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. The motion carries. We'll continue on.
Oh, God.
Moving on to item 4, staff commissioner closing comments. Bev, we'll start with you. Do you have any comments?
Everybody, I'm so pleased that this is moving around. Is there a deadline to get this done before like New Year's morning?
Well, the intention was to take it to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the intention was to take it to council on December 20th for them to take action on it. We typically get the staff report out a week ahead, which means we'd be getting it to them before your next meeting. So if there's new things that come up at your meeting that you want to recommend to the council, you can do that. And they can add the changes at their meeting on the 20th of December. But that's the spot that we have held on the council agenda at this time. So I think we're pretty on target.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm
Carmen?
okay then.
Carmen, any comments?
I just want to say thank you to Carolyn and everybody who's worked really hard on this. Really coming along well, and I'm excited to see it in the council chambers moving forward. So, yeah, thank you everybody for the hard work.
Thank you.
Coco?
Yes, I just wanted to commend Carolyn and the city staff and everyone that worked on this, given the fact, the timeline, and not having a paid consultant like you did last time. It's pretty monumental to get this far. Separating the wheat from the chaff is when we implement it, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Coco. I would like to echo the comments of the other commissioners. This moved at a rapid pace. I think the last one took us like a year or year and a half to do, but it had been about 25 years since the previous one. So, but this is monumental. It is much more in line with current standards, and I think we have a real shot at going after and getting some grants and other funding sources that's indicated in here. So I really do appreciate it. One other additional comment I'd like to make is there is the open position for Sam's position on the commission, and then also myself, Bill Otten, and Carmen are up for renewal onto the Parks Commission. So I assume city staff will be sending out the applications soon so that we can get those turned in and reapply if those people are interested in doing so. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you so much for attending today, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Coco.
Good night, Jim. We should also ask for commission action. Yeah. You know, which is recommend. It's always going to just get them something to say. Draft. Recommend approval.
Yeah.
Recommend to cancel approval. Draft. I guess we have to buy that stuff. Did you want me to look into that for you? Yeah. Okay.
You guys missed your little duct tape when she left.
We fell apart anyway. Yeah, we fell apart.
That's no joke.
We will get the agenda cleaned up for the next meeting. Yes, yes, you get, yeah.